There comes a moment in life when everything shifts, and you don't even realize it until you're standing on the other side of the storm. Chosen one, if you're hearing this today, I want you to understand something that many people will never comprehend. There are conversations taking place about you that you know nothing about. There are people whispering your name in rooms you've never entered. There are those who suddenly feel an urgency to protect you, while others are desperately trying to undo what they have already set into motion. And then there is one person, someone who saw everything before it unfolded, someone they begged to warn you. But when they pleaded, "Please tell them before it's too late," he simply smiled and said, "Too late." That wasn't cruelty. That wasn't revenge. That was the recognition that God's timing had already begun moving. Once heaven has decided to expose the truth, no human warning can stop what must happen. Sometimes the lesson isn't meant to be avoided. Sometimes it must be experienced, because your destiny is waiting on the other side of the pain. Many of you have spent years asking God why He allowed betrayal, rejection, false accusations, and heartbreak to enter your life. You wondered why He stayed silent while people lied about you. You questioned why doors closed in your face when your heart was pure. But what if I told you that those closed doors weren't punishment, they were protection? What if the betrayal that nearly broke you was actually separating you from people who would have destroyed your future? You see, the enemy thought isolation would weaken you, but heaven used isolation to strengthen you. While they celebrated your absence, God was building your endurance. While they mocked your silence, He was sharpening your discernment. While they thought they had erased your influence, God was preparing a platform that no human hand could remove. That's why when the moment finally arrived, when those same people realized the damage they had caused, they panicked. They wanted someone to warn you, because they suddenly understood they had awakened something inside you that could never be put back to sleep. Listen carefully, because this is where many chosen ones make a mistake. They assume everyone who comes back into their life has changed, but not everyone who returns has repented. Some return because they fear what they are about to lose. They don't miss you. They miss the access they once had. They miss the benefits of your kindness. They miss the peace your presence brought into their lives. They miss the favor that followed you everywhere you went. The blessing wasn't the building, it wasn't the job, it wasn't the opportunity. The blessing was you. And once you walked away, everything around them began falling apart. Suddenly they wanted someone to fix what they had broken. Suddenly they remembered your value. Suddenly they wished someone had stopped you before you disappeared forever. But the answer remained the same: too late. Because God was not leading you backward. He was leading you into purpose. Never confuse delayed justice with forgotten justice. Just because God doesn't respond immediately doesn't mean He isn't working. While you were crying at night, heaven was documenting every insult. While you were forgiving people who never apologized, God was arranging every piece of your restoration. There are seasons when it feels like evil is winning, but don't be deceived. Darkness always appears strongest right before the sunrise. The same people who laughed while you struggled will one day stand speechless as they watch your breakthrough. Not because you sought revenge, not because you tried to prove them wrong, but because God delights in lifting those who remain faithful during hidden seasons. Your reward isn't coming because you're perfect. It's coming because you refuse to let bitterness replace your faith. Some of you are still waiting for an apology that will never come. Let me set your heart free today. Stop waiting. The apology isn't your healing. God's presence is your healing. Their acknowledgement isn't your freedom. God's truth is your freedom. If they never admit what they did, heaven still knows. If they continue pretending to be innocent, heaven still knows. If they rewrite the story to make themselves look better, heaven still knows. And the opinion that matters most has never belonged to the crowd. It belongs to the one who formed you before the foundation of the world. You don't need everyone to believe you when God has already called you chosen. The approval of people is temporary, but the approval of heaven is eternal. Here's what makes the chosen different. They don't become stronger because life is easy. They become stronger because every attack teaches them another level of trust. Every disappointment teaches another level of wisdom. Every betrayal teaches another level of discernment. The pain wasn't wasted. It became your training ground. The tears weren't ignored. They became the water that nourished your spiritual growth. The loneliness wasn't empty. It became the place where your relationship with God grew deeper than your relationship with people's opinions. And now, the version of you standing today is not the same person who entered the battle. You carry peace that confusion cannot steal. You carry confidence that criticism cannot shake. You carry authority that fear cannot silence. So when people ask why you don't react the way you used to, it's because you've changed. You no longer chase explanations from people committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer fight for a seat at tables where your absence was celebrated. You no longer beg for loyalty from those who repeatedly chose betrayal. You have learned that every no from the wrong people made room for God's yes. Every ending prepared you for a greater beginning. Every loss removed unnecessary weight from your journey. That's why your spirit feels lighter now. That's why your vision is clearer. That's why your peace has become more valuable than proving yourself right. And let me tell you something powerful before we finish. The phrase, "too late," isn't a message of hopelessness for you. It's a message of finality for everything that tried to stop your destiny. It's too late for fear to control your decisions. It's too late for lies to define your identity. It's too late for betrayal to destroy your purpose. It's too late for the enemy to convince you that you are forgotten. God has already written the next chapter. Heaven has already authorized your restoration. The doors prepared for you cannot be locked by human hands, and the blessings assigned to your name cannot be stolen by human jealousy. Walk forward with confidence. Lift your head higher than ever before. Keep your heart pure, even when others refuse to change. Continue showing kindness without becoming naive. Continue trusting God without demanding immediate answers. Because the same God who carried you through every hidden battle is about to reveal why every delay, every disappointment, every tear, and every closed door was necessary. Chosen one, your story was never ending in defeat. The warning they wanted delivered never came because heaven had already decided that your season of surviving was over. Now your season of rising has begun, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop what God has already declared over your life. Chosen one, I want you to think about this for a moment. Have you ever wondered why God didn't stop certain people before they hurt you? Have you ever prayed, "Lord, if you knew this was going to happen, why didn't you warn me?" Those are honest questions, and almost every chosen person has asked them at some point in life. But what if the very thing you wanted God to prevent was the very thing He intended to use to transform you? Sometimes we assume that God's protection always looks like prevention, but many times His protection looks like preparation. Instead of removing the trial, He strengthens the person walking through it. Instead of exposing every hidden enemy before they act, He allows their true nature to reveal itself at the perfect time. That is why what happened to you was never outside of God's control. He saw it long before you did, and yet He remained calm because He knew something you didn't. He knew that the attack would not destroy you. He knew it would develop you. Think about the people who smiled in your face while secretly hoping for your failure. Think about those who applauded you in public but criticized you in private. Think about the ones who pretended to support your dreams while quietly working against them. At first, it hurts because you trusted them. You believed their words, you believed their promises, and when the truth finally surfaced, it felt like the ground beneath your feet disappeared. You asked yourself, how could they do this to me? But today I want you to ask a different question. Instead of asking why they betrayed you, ask why God allowed their masks to fall. The answer is powerful. God was protecting your future. Imagine if those same people had remained hidden for another 5 or 10 years. Imagine if they had gained even greater access to your life, your family, your calling, and your purpose. The damage could have been much greater. So God allowed the truth to come out before your destiny reached its greatest season. That doesn't mean the pain wasn't real. It doesn't mean the tears didn't matter. God never ignores your suffering. Every tear you cried mattered to Him. Every sleepless night mattered to Him. Every prayer whispered through a broken heart reached heaven. But while you were asking God to change the people around you, He was changing you. While you wanted Him to remove the pain immediately, He was building strength inside you that could never be developed in comfort. There are lessons that success cannot teach. There are truths that only heartbreak can reveal. There is wisdom that only comes after disappointment. And although you would never choose that road for yourself, once you reach the other side, you realize it was preparing you for something greater than you imagined. The people who betrayed you believed they were ending your story. They assumed one lie would destroy your reputation. They believed one rejection would make you quit. They thought one disappointment would convince you that God had forgotten you. But they underestimated the God who called you. They saw your weakness, but they didn't see God's strength. They saw your tears, but they didn't see heaven fighting for you behind the scenes. They judged your silence as defeat, when, in reality, God was teaching you restraint. Sometimes the greatest victory is refusing to become like the people who hurt you. Anyone can respond with anger. Anyone can seek revenge. But it takes spiritual maturity to trust God enough to let Him handle what you cannot. You see, betrayal has a way of opening your eyes. Before it happened, you trusted everyone too easily. You believed every compliment. You ignored every warning sign because your heart was genuine. But after the experience, something changed. Not because you became bitter, but because you became wiser. God wasn't teaching you to stop loving people. He was teaching you to love with discernment. He wasn't telling you to close your heart forever. He was teaching you that not everyone deserves unlimited access to your peace. There is a difference between forgiving someone and giving them another opportunity to wound you. Forgiveness sets your heart free, but wisdom protects your future. Some of you listening today have blamed yourselves for what happened. You replay every conversation in your mind. You wonder if you should have noticed the signs earlier. You think, maybe if I had been smarter, this wouldn't have happened. But let me encourage you today. Stop carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. A good heart is not a weakness. Trusting people is not a flaw. Loving sincerely is not something you should regret. The mistake belongs to those who abused your kindness, not to you for having it. Don't allow someone else's betrayal to convince you that you should become cold, suspicious, and hard-hearted. If you lose your kindness, then the people who hurt you have stolen something even more valuable than your peace. Keep your heart soft before God, but let your wisdom grow stronger with every lesson. There is another reason God allowed this season. He wanted to remove every distraction standing between you and your calling. Some relationships were consuming your energy. Some friendships were delaying your growth. Some environments were too comfortable for the future He had prepared for you. Had those people remained in your life, you might never have stepped into the purpose God designed for you. Sometimes, what feels like a painful loss is actually a divine separation. God isn't taking something valuable away from you. He is removing what cannot go where He is taking you. The separation hurts because you only see what you lost. God smiles because He sees what you are about to gain. The amazing thing is that those who betrayed you often realize the truth much later. They begin to notice that peace left when you left. They recognize that the favor surrounding your life was never because of luck. They discover that your loyalty, your prayers, your encouragement, and your presence were gifts they took for granted. Suddenly they wish someone had stopped everything before it reached this point. They wish someone had warned you. They wish someone had convinced you to stay. But by then the lesson has already accomplished its purpose. You are no longer the same person they once knew. You have grown. You have healed. You have become stronger. Your confidence no longer depends on people's approval because it now rests in God's promises. Chosen one, never believe that your painful season was meaningless. Every disappointment was teaching you something you couldn't have learned any other way. Every closed door redirected your path. Every betrayal exposed what needed to be exposed. Every delay built patience. Every tear strengthened your faith. Looking back, you may still wish it hadn't happened, but one day you will thank God for what He revealed through it. You will understand that if He had warned you too early, you might have ignored Him. If He had removed every difficult person before they acted, you would never have recognized the importance of discernment. Instead, He allowed the truth to reveal itself, and through that truth, He prepared you for a future where your peace would no longer depend on people, your confidence would no longer depend on circumstances, and your identity would rest securely in the One who called you before anyone else ever knew your name. That is why your story is not one of defeat. It is the story of someone God trusted enough to turn pain into preparation, betrayal into wisdom, and every attack into another step toward the destiny that was always waiting for you. Chosen one, there is something deeply powerful about the words, "too late." At first, those words may sound harsh, almost as if they carry a message of defeat. But for someone walking with God, too late does not mean your opportunity has passed. It means the enemy's opportunity has passed. It means there comes a moment when heaven draws a line that no person can erase. There is a point where every lie has already served its purpose. Every betrayal has already exposed itself. Every attack has already strengthened you. And God's plan has moved so far ahead that no human effort can pull you back into the past. That is the moment when those who underestimated you begin to panic. They suddenly realize they cannot undo what they have done. They cannot reverse the consequences of rejecting someone God had chosen. They cannot reclaim the favor they carelessly threw away. They desperately wish someone would warn you before you move forward, before you close the door forever, before your life changes beyond recognition. But the answer remains the same. Too late. Think about how many people only recognize value after they lose it. While you were present, they overlooked your kindness. They dismissed your loyalty. They ignored your prayers, your encouragement, your sacrifices, and your love. They assumed you would always be there. They believed your patience had no limit. They thought they could continue taking from you without ever appreciating what you brought into their lives. But God never intended for His chosen people to remain where they are, constantly dishonored. There comes a season when heaven says, "Enough." Not because God is angry without reason, but because your destiny requires separation from people who refuse to honor what He placed inside you. When that season begins, something changes inside you. You don't become bitter, you become peaceful. You stop chasing people who enjoy being chased. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided to misunderstand you. You stop defending your character against those committed to believing lies. Why? Because your confidence is no longer built on human approval, it is built on God's calling. And that kind of confidence cannot be manipulated. It cannot be intimidated. It cannot be stolen. This is what many people fail to understand about a chosen one. They believe your silence means weakness. They mistake your patience for fear. They think because you don't argue, you don't notice. But while they are busy creating stories about you, God is writing your future. While they are trying to block one door, He is opening another one that they cannot even see. The enemy focuses on closing temporary opportunities, but God specializes in creating permanent purpose. That is why every attempt to stop you eventually becomes another reason for your promotion. Some of you listening today have spent years waiting for people to finally understand your worth. You've hoped they would apologize. You've imagined the day they would admit they were wrong. But let me tell you something that can set your heart free. Your future does not depend on their apology. Your healing does not require their confession. God's restoration is not waiting for human permission. The moment God decides to elevate you, no delayed apology can increase your blessing, and no continued rejection can reduce it. Heaven has never asked your enemies whether you deserve favor. Heaven has already decided. Notice something remarkable. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, when David was hunted by Saul, when countless faithful people in Scripture faced rejection, the rejection itself became part of the path toward God's promise. What looked like the end was actually the beginning. The people causing the pain believed they were delaying God's plan, but in reality, they were unknowingly helping fulfill it. The same is true for you. Every obstacle that seemed designed to stop your progress became another step leading you exactly where God intended. There comes a point where your growth becomes impossible to ignore. The same people who once criticized your dreams begin hearing about your victories. The same voices that laughed at your faith begin wondering how you stayed standing after everything you faced. They look at your peace and cannot understand it. They look at your confidence and wonder where it came from. They expected you to become angry, bitter, and defeated. Instead, you became wiser, calmer, and stronger. That transformation confuses those who only understand success through human effort because they fail to recognize the hand of God working behind the scenes. And this is why the words, "too late," carry such incredible meaning. It is too late for fear to convince you that you are not enough, because God has already shown you His strength in your weakness. It is too late for rejection to define your identity, because you now know who called you. It is too late for betrayal to destroy your faith, because the very people who hurt you pushed you closer to God than comfort ever could. It is too late for manipulation to control your decisions, because you have learned to recognize the difference between guilt and genuine love. You are no longer the person who depended on everyone's approval. You have discovered the freedom that comes from depending on God alone. Perhaps someone watching today feels as though they have missed their opportunity. Maybe you think the mistakes of your past are too great. Maybe you believe the pain you've endured has permanently damaged your future. But hear this clearly. The too late message is not directed at God's children. It is directed at everything that tried to keep them from fulfilling their purpose. It is too late for the enemy's lies because God's truth has already reached your heart. It is too late for darkness because the light has already entered your life. It is too late for despair because hope has already taken root. Once God begins a work within you, no force on earth can cancel what heaven has established. Do not waste another day looking behind you. The people who walked away have already made their choice. The opportunities that closed were never your final destination. The chapters that ended were never meant to become your entire story. Your assignment is not to mourn what God removed. Your assignment is to walk boldly toward what He has prepared. Every step forward is an act of faith. Every refusal to return to toxic patterns is evidence of growth. Every decision to trust God, despite unanswered questions, is proof that your spirit has matured. One day you'll look back and realize that the greatest miracle wasn't simply that God changed your circumstances. The greatest miracle was that He changed you. He transformed your pain into purpose, your disappointment into discernment, your loneliness into intimacy with Him, and your weakness into unshakable strength. The person you have become is someone your past could never have produced without the very trials you once begged God to remove. So lift your head high, chosen one. Stop fearing the future and stop grieving what can never return. God's hand is upon your life, and His plans cannot be overturned by human opinions, delayed by betrayal, or cancelled by rejection. The season of questioning is ending, and the season of clarity is beginning. The same God who carried you through hidden battles is now leading you into open victories. What He has prepared for you is greater than what you lost, stronger than what opposed you, and more lasting than anything the world could ever offer. The enemy may have thought he still had time to stop your calling, but heaven has already spoken its final word. For every force that stood against your destiny, for every lie that tried to imprison your future, and for every scheme designed to keep you from becoming who God created you to be, the answer has already been given. It is, and forever will be, too late.